Hello storytellers and welcome. I am writer and artist Lex Lank and this is Creator's Cut, my continuing video series about my continuing creative journey. So today I am going to be going over part 2 of my series on what steals your writing joy. What is the second thing? We'll find out in a minute. So hello again to everyone. If you're new here, welcome. If you've watched my videos before, welcome back. So in part 1 of this 2-part video series, and I'll put the first one in the description for those who haven't seen it. So in part 1, I spoke about the first thing and the foremost thing that I feel steals the writing joy from writers who are trying to work on their projects, trying to get work done, trying to be creative. But today I'm going to focus on the second thing that I feel is a big hindrance to creatives, especially writers. This applies to, I would assume, any creative field, but we're talking about writing specifically. For these videos, I went through my own personal experiences and my own personal feelings and just tried to dig deep and think of what I felt was the most challenging for me personally as a writer, as far as things that hold me back or things that tangle up my emotions, things that tangle up my sense of not only self when it comes to being a writer, but my sense of confidence in my writing. And what I talked about in the first video, I felt was a little bit easier to pull apart than what I'm going to talk about now. But when I narrowed down what my major 2 concerns were and have been as a writer, this definitely was on the list. So I knew I had to include it in the second part, and that's actually why I wanted to do a second part. So today we are going to talk about, wait for it, the fear of publishing. Now you might be thinking, okay Lex, I'm a writer and I love writing and I love putting together words, but I'm not actually interested in publishing. I just want to write for myself, or maybe I just want to post things online. Maybe you are looking at self-publishing and thinking, well, I don't want to publish traditionally, or I don't want to publish yet. But that doesn't mean this doesn't apply to you. Because I think another way to describe the fear of publishing would be to talk about the fear of being heard. The fear of somebody reading your work, the fear of somebody reading your thoughts. If you really want to put it into narrow terms, that's what it feels like. The fear of publishing is very much the fear of being heard, I would say. The fear of putting your thoughts and feelings out into the world and having them rejected. Because writing is very personal, even though you're writing for a larger audience a lot of the time. Anything creative is a reflection of you as a person, which I talked a little bit about in my last video. That was my mid-year update. I will also put it in the description just for anyone who wants to watch it. I did make mention of how your book reflects you and reflects your history and reflects your thoughts over time. So I think this is a very understandable fear. Honestly, we as people, as humans, are always a little nervous to have our mask taken away, to have our inner thoughts exposed, to have our emotions exposed, to really be seen by other people. And that's an absolutely understandable fear. Because if you've lived any amount of life, you know that people aren't always accepting and people don't always understand. Some people don't want to understand. When it comes to living in the world and talking to other people and putting our creativity out there, it can be very overwhelming and it can be honestly kind of scary, especially in recent years. I feel like, I'm gonna go there for a minute, I'm warning you. I feel like in the last, I don't know, 10 to 15 years especially, with the way the internet has evolved and the way social media has evolved, there have been a lot of negative interactions with readers and fans, and that's not everyone, absolutely not everyone. There are plenty of great readers, plenty of great fans, but sometimes the internet can draw the worst out of people, and I think there can be people that take things a little too far and tend to forget that creators are people too. you know, humans with their own thoughts and emotions and lives. So yeah, I can absolutely understand why we all have, at some point, this fear of publishing or this fear of putting our work out there, even if it's just handing it to your friends. You are exposing a part of yourself that was not exposed before. And that can be frightening. I think it's okay to recognize that. It can be frightening. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, I do also believe that it is worth sharing things with others, even if others might not perceive things the way that you intended. Two people can read the same book and get something completely different from it. The imagination draws in every reader's perception of the world because they can project whatever they want onto it to some degree. And for a writer, that can be a little frustrating because when you sit down and you are working, you have a certain thing in mind. You have a certain vision in mind. You have things that you're trying to say to the best of your ability, emotions you're trying to communicate, concepts you're trying to communicate. And of course, the idea that somebody might not understand what you're trying to say is frustrating. It's frustrating in everyday life. It can be frustrating in a conversation you're having with someone. But just like that means that you would never want to not have a conversation with somebody, I don't think this should stop us from wanting to publish or wanting to share our work and share our perceptions about the world and our experiences and our creativity and the things that we find interesting. Just because someone might not completely understand what you were trying to say, might not agree with you, might take things out of context or have a totally different view of your work, doesn't mean that it's not worth sharing. Art is a very personal human expression, and I find that the more art we put ourselves in contact with, I won't say consume because I don't like that word. Side note, one of my favorite books on writing was from Madeleine L'Engle, who wrote, I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, but who wrote A Wrinkle in Time. She wrote a book about writing called Walking on Water, and in it she talks about the fact that she doesn't like the word consumer because it feels aggressive and like something that would destroy. And I kind of agree with her on that one. So I try to use words separate from that. So in this case, the person who is taking in the art, is enjoying the art, is reflecting on it, not consuming it. Art is one of the things that connects us to other people, that allows us to see outside of ourselves. So if we don't put our art out there, we don't put ourselves out there, we don't put our stories out there, then I feel like not only do people lose out on great stories and interesting characters, but they also lose out on a new source of empathy for others, a new source of information, a new way of looking at the world. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to agree with it. It's okay to disagree with others. It's okay to read a book and only like a few things from it. There have been books that I have read that I don't agree with most of it, but I am so glad that the writer put it out because I was able to read it and see a different perspective. Aside from your personal investment in sharing your work and sharing your creativity and sharing just things that you find amazing and inspiring, there is an aspect of responsibility as a writer, which I talk about responsibility a lot on this channel, I think. There is a sense of responsibility to share your thoughts with other people. And that doesn't mean you have to share everything. I'm not saying just go online and throw things out there all the time, all of your information. No, I mean sharing your work and sharing your creativity and your things that you've put together. I think there is a sense of responsibility there because the more we share, the more we try to understand each other, and the more we use stories to try to understand each other, I think the better the world gets. Writing and creativity and stories in general are some of the most wonderful tools that we have because everybody can understand story. I think humans are wired to understand story. We enjoy story. It's just one of those international things. So when I look at the fear of publishing and the fear of putting your work out there and your thoughts out there, I absolutely understand. I have reservations about all of those things myself all of the time, and I have had reservations in the past when I self-published, and Of course, you are going to be a little nervous of sharing your thoughts with other people, but I think that just adds to the larger discussion of life and the larger discussion of what it means to be human and what it means to connect across not only countries and languages, but even just across time too. I love reading classics. I'm one of those people, I'll read pretty much anything if it's interesting and I like the concept. But I love reading classics. I read a lot of classics growing up. I still try to read at least one a month, a year, not a month. But I can't imagine if all of those writers who have been on the shelves for hundreds of years, some of them, had never had the courage to publish their work, had let that fear get to them of, oh, what are my peers going to think? Let alone what are people hundreds of years from now going to think? I can't imagine if they had let that fear get to them and then not gone through what they did. Some of them had a lot of challenges to even get published. It's not like now where you can just press a button. But I can't imagine them not having put these words out and these stories out and these thoughts out for me to read now. The history of literature would be less rich than it is, but I also think culture would be less rich than it is because a lot of these stories have impacted the cultures, not only that they started in, but other cultures as the books were translated and passed along. I can't imagine how different the world would be as some of these didn't exist. And you watching this video, and even me sometimes, probably are thinking, okay, Lex, well, yeah, but I'm no Shakespeare. You know, I'm a good writer, but I'm probably not going to be as popular as he is. Is. I'm not, J.K. Rowling. I'm not insert whatever writer that you can think of. I'm not any of these people that have been read for hundreds of years and will be read for hundreds of years. But first off, you don't actually know that because surprising books become popular all the time. But also, even if you just impact one person and that person impacts one person and that person impacts one person, over time that leads to a lot of people and a lot of change. And so that's something I like to keep in mind. Yes, you can let the fear drown you and you can think, oh, what if people don't understand? What if people don't like this? What if I get trolls online telling me I need to kill off this character or keep this character because they don't like what's going on? In which case, please just write your own story. It's okay, you can do that. Leave the writer alone. But those are all legitimate fears. I absolutely understand that. But we have to decide, are we going to let that keep us from writing? Or are we going to switch our mindset and think, okay, yeah, sure, there are all these scary things here. And there are things we have to consider, and it's understandable to get tied up by that every once in a while. But at the same time, how is my story going to impact? How is my story going to impact someone? How is my story maybe going to impact multiple someones in a good way? We're thinking good here, right? How's my story going to have a good impact on people by sharing it, by publishing it, by doing the work I know I need to do, the work I want to do? You can choose to focus on the negative or you can choose to focus on the positive. And well, I think you know which one I'm more inclined to focus on. There are a lot of possibilities, and I think we shouldn't always be inclined to put the negative possibilities first, even though, especially, with the internet and how people are online sometimes, you might be more inclined to put the negatives first. But often the positives far outweigh the negatives, and even though we might not see those in the forefront of the cyberspace, they do exist. Whatever story you have to share is going to impact someone in a positive way. It's going to inspire someone. It might even save someone's life. And that sounds dramatic, but there are stories that have done that, whether literally or figuratively. Someone might be going through something that your characters are going through, and it doesn't have to be, a real life story. I write fantasy. I'm sure somebody is going to be able to take what my characters are going through and relate to it, and it might help them in some way. I certainly hope it does help them in some way. I have no way of knowing that, but I have that hope because I know there are other stories that have really positively affected me and helped me get through some difficult times in life. And I think that's honestly the biggest thing that we have to remember. We might have fears about publishing and taxes and how many copies we can sell and how long it will take and all of these things. And that's legitimate concerns. When you do something as a business, you have to think about the business aspect of it. However, I don't think that should override not only our excitement for our work, but also the legitimate understanding that for every negative impact and for every negative take on our work, there are going to be at least a few positives. At the end of the day, what matters most is how your story is going to positively affect someone and positively affect the space that it's in. So what matters is the people who are going to love the story and the people who are going to understand it and the people who are going to be inspired by it and be able to look at this thing that you've created and see how amazing it is and derive great things from it. And hopefully, most importantly, derive a sense of comfort from it and connection, not only with the book, but with other people. That's what we all want, right? For readers to enjoy our stories, but also to get something great out of them. And so I think that's what we have to focus on, even though we might have concerns about all of the other negatives and all of the other tiny things that we have to think about. Put your mind in the positive space and keep it centered on the good things that are going to happen. I think that it makes it much easier to deal with the negatives when they come, and much easier to remember why you started this journey in the first place, which maybe might not have been solely to have people read it, but definitely, I would say, probably included that. So if you are struggling with the fear of publishing, the fear of sharing your work, please know that, yes, there will be positive impact. There will probably be negative too, but that's just part of life. We have to take the negative with the positive. And also for you as the writer, sharing your work means that you can improve. It means that you get feedback. It means that you can see other people enjoying your work. And at the end of the day, that's super exciting. Back when I did self-publish, I loved seeing when somebody enjoyed my work. I loved when I went to book signings and got to talk to different people, especially if I got to talk about writing, which is always exciting. It's a great feeling when you know that somebody has enjoyed your work. And that's something that you have to hold on to. And also, you are not discounted in this equation. If you want to publish, if you are excited to publish, you want to share your work, you want to share your hard work, you want people to see the great story that you have put together because you love writing, that is an aspect that you have to consider too. You're not absent from the equation. It's very fulfilling to have your work out there, and it's very exciting, and it's a privilege to be able to write and to be able to share things with other people. So that's something to remember as well. So this has been part 2 of Rekindling Your Writing Joy. I hope you've enjoyed these videos. I had a lot of fun putting them together and just thinking about this particular aspect of writing. If you would like to hear a little bit more about any of these things, please leave a comment in the box below and let me know. And if you are currently working on a project, best of luck to you, and keep going and don't give up, even though sometimes life tries to get you down. Keep your writing joy. Keep it kindled and keep it protected like a little flame that you want to grow. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it was helpful to you. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, leave a comment below, leave a like on the video. Thank you for supporting the channel, and I will see you all next time. Bye!